I think Nikola Jokic is the MVP. We've talked about this a lot. I think James Harden's there. I certainly think Nikola Jokic is more deserving at this point based on his performance, his value to that team. Jake, I think it's hard to make an argument that anybody but Nikola Jokic right now today deserves the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Jokic is playing really well, and I think that, when I guess this whole MVP conversation really comes down to how you define the MVP. And last week we were kind of talking about the fact that, on this show we kind of talk about the MVP as being the guy who is most valuable to their team. If you take that guy off their team, what does that team look like? And so if you take Jokic off of that team, they're clearly not the same team. They're clearly not where they are today. And I think that, what really separates him is yes, his ability to distribute. But I think the fact that he's doing it as a big really kind of changes the dynamic. Because if you think about it, it's one thing for an average 6'4" point guard in the NBA to be standing at the top of the key and facilitating. I mean, that's what they do all game long. It's a completely different thing to have a 7-footer, a big man, a guy like Jokic standing there at the elbow or at the top of the key, setting screens, setting up Jamal Murray, setting up Aaron Gordon, setting up all these guys for really high percentage looks. And this is what I always come back to when we talk about the postseason and where this team is going to go. In the postseason, it turns into half-court basketball. You don't get a lot of that transition stuff in the postseason. And so in half-court settings, Jokic is going to dominate because he can play with his back to the basket. He can shoot the three. He can also be the linchpin of your offense, which is to say you can bring it up, give it to him, and let him get it going. And other than that, he also brings a lot of toughness. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue that there's another guy doing what he's doing. Yes. Do I think James Harden is right there? Yeah, absolutely. I think James Harden is now getting into the realm of, hey, I dominate the game so much that maybe people don't appreciate it as much as they once did. Because I certainly feel like some players like LeBron and any of these guys who dominate the league for a really long time, when you've dominated the league like LeBron has for 15 years now or whatever it's been, there is definitely a factor of, hey, people just assume you're going to play at that level, so you don't get the accolades you probably deserve. But at the end of the day, right now, yeah, it's probably Jokic, and I think that if you're a Jazz fan, that's definitely concerning.
I don't have any doubt it's Jokic. I think that performance last night against the Magic was exactly what we talk about when we say, hey, Rudy Gobert's got to be better. When we talk about this idea that, listen, Nikola Jokic is a complete player. He defends well. He's not the defender Rudy Gobert is. I don't know that anybody in the middle is.
Yeah.
But his ability to pass the basketball, rebound, score, shoot threes, impact the game on both ends of the floor is exactly what you want out of your big at this point. And when you look at the way the Nuggets work, everything goes through him. And he makes Jamal Murray, he makes Aaron Gordon, he makes everybody around him better. His ability to pass has really helped Aaron Gordon get established on that Nuggets roster. Rudy Gobert is never going to be that player. But I don't know that the Jazz need him to be. The insufficiency with the Jazz right now is not even Rudy Gobert's offense. It's a consistent number 2 option. But you have guys like Ben Anderson at KSL, floating the idea that Rudy Gobert should be in the MVP conversation. And I'm telling you, he's got no business there.
Yeah.
The numbers don't say that. The team performance doesn't say that.
The eye test doesn't say that.
The eye test doesn't say that.
Yeah.
So I look at Rudy Gobert, and he's a very good center. I think he's one of the best defensive players in the NBA. He's not an MVP candidate because without him, they still win. Without him, is it more difficult? Yeah, you're not as good defensively. But I'm telling you, without Nikola Jokic, the Nuggets don't win. They don't have a chance to win. He is their best player, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah, and I think when you have him standing out at the elbow and the top of the key like they did last night, again, I would just encourage everybody, go look at the highlights from last night because last night was a great example of what they're going to do with him when they play the Jazz because that is happening. That's going to happen this postseason. Basically, all they're doing is they're standing him up at the elbow or at the top of the key. And what they're doing is they're getting cutting action for the other 4 guys, or they're setting screens at the top to get an open look at 3, depending on the matchups. And so when you start to look at, hey, who's most valuable to their team? Well, they're not. Paul Millsap's not doing that for that team, right? Like they don't have another option, and so like with Rudy, the difference is Rudy is not on Jokic's level from a passing perspective, from a scoring perspective, and really just from an offensive side of the ball perspective. Rudy's probably a better defender, I would think. I think we could all agree on that. But I just think the total package lends itself to Jokic. And I think that this conversation isn't predicated on the deal that Rudy got. But I think that for Jazz fans, when this conversation comes up about like Jokic and then, of course, Embiid, and, if Andre Drummond ever decides to play consistent minutes for the Lakers, like it really, this conversation starts to come into the picture about, okay, well, hey, for our franchise in the Jazz, we paid Rudy $200 million. We signed him that deal, a long-term extension, and now we're committed to him, and we're comparing his performance to all these other guys, and it's like, dude, like, is this really stacking up to the best bigs in the league, and sometimes I feel like it does fall short, but I guess, that's just
when you say fall short.
Like, I just don't think, like, if you say, hey, like, swap out, take the Denver Nuggets, right? Take Jokic off the squad, put Embiid on the squad. They're not the same team.
No,
they're just not even close to the same team, and so that's why I struggle with the idea of like. The day that they signed Rudy to that deal, I was pretty upset about it. I didn't like it. I just didn't think it was a savvy basketball play if you wanted to go and win a championship. And so now that they've done it, we've talked about it many times, but now I'm sitting here saying, okay, well, this matchup, everyone's opinion on Aaron Gordon and Jokic and that dynamic is different. My opinion is that Nikola Jokic is absolutely the linchpin of that offense. Jamal Murray's the guy that's going to knock down the dagger three, and Aaron Gordon's the guy that's going to kick your ass in the paint after he gets the ball from Jokic. And my biggest fear is that not only do you not have a guy to stop Jokic, you don't have a guy to stop Aaron Gordon. That's the problem. Like, those two guys are operating basically unchecked because they can do what they want to do because of their size.
Yeah, and I think when you look around the rest of the league, I think you also forget that the Nuggets have depth now. And I think seeing JaVale McGee make his debut last night, run the floor, look good doing it, I think the way that Aaron Gordon has been reinvigorated, this is the team that should worry the Jazz. I don't worry about the Clippers because I think you can out-physical the Clippers. I think you can be more mentally tough than the Clippers. The Lakers are not healthy. The other team is the Phoenix Suns, and I know that everybody overlooks the Suns. Probably us on this show as well.
It's the Devin Booker show.
Well, yeah, I mean, and everybody says that I'm a Devin Booker homer. And, hey, listen, I make no secret about the fact that Devin's my favorite NBA player, but the fact is Devin Booker's one man, and the Suns are now a team that are 8 deep, and they can, with quality, bring guys in and play rotational basketball through the middle of the game. But then in the end of the fourth quarter, you're getting CP3, Mikal Bridges. Saric has given them some nice contributions. The fact that DeAndre Ayton now is a guy that you can really count on to knock down that elbow jumper, that free throw line jumper. I mean, this offense is really developed. The only criticism I have of them is when Chris Paul's on the floor, they play a little slower than I would like.
Yeah, and you're not alone in that.
Yeah, I think that's a problem based on the way that this league is going.
Yeah.
Now, in the postseason, I actually think that's a plus because the game does slow down. You get a lot more half court. You have to execute half court defense. I think Mikal Bridges' defense has evolved to the point where you can count on him to be a very good on-ball defender and not get lost. They defend the corner three really well, which is imperative in this league, as do the Jazz. I think the Nuggets and the Jazz are on a different level in the West. And if Anthony Davis and LeBron come back, I think you can put the Lakers back there as well because you're starting to see guys develop a little bit more for the Lakers. Now that you've been a couple of weeks without those two guys, you're seeing guys get more comfortable in their role. And I also think, by the way, real quick on the Lakers, I think Kyle Kuzma is getting exposed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he is that superstar that everybody was painting him to be.
Yeah.
Having said all of that, I still think that the Nuggets are the best team in the West. I think the Jazz are number 2. I think the Suns are number 3. But frankly, the top 8 teams in the West are all capable of winning a playoff series.
Yeah, and I think the scary thing is if you're in the West, and this is what the Lakers are seeing firsthand, is that once you're out of the top 3, you might as well be an 8 seed because you're 2 games, 3 games out from being that because it's so close. And so I think that the last thing I would say about the Lakers is I feel like they're now accepting the fact that they're not going to contend to win the West, right? They're going to get into the postseason as a mid-tier seed, and they're going to have to fight their way through the postseason.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so I think, I don't know, man. I am really wary of the AD situation. Like, after what Kevin Durant went through with his leg thing and, like, all that, like, I can't imagine that happening to Anthony Davis.
I would go slow because I don't even know that if you bring those 2 guys back that the Lakers win a championship because I don't see – nobody matches up well with Brooklyn. Let's be honest. I mean, if they have home court throughout, you're done.
Yeah.
And at this point, there's no way that the Lakers would have home court over the Nets. So I think you're asking an awful lot there. And frankly, the flaw with the Lakers right now is the guys they're missing. And this is going to sound odd. Bringing those guys back doesn't fix that flaw because they're not going to be at 100%. I mean, and I know that LeBron James rolls out and he's arguably the best player in the world every time he does.
Yeah.
I understand that. Anthony Davis isn't that guy because I think when you bring Anthony Davis back, it's going to have been months since he played.
It's not in game shape.
Shooting, game shape, cardiovascular, question marks in his mind, being hesitant about that calf/Achilles. This is just not your year. So I would not rush him back. That's my opinion. But we'll see. I don't know. Good morning, Gabe Ledley. He says, morning, fellas. Good morning to you. Barry says, at what point do you guys stop jock riding the Utah Jazz? Well, Barry,
I don't think I've been jock riding them, dude. Like, I think that do you like the thing I'd ask you, Barry, is how much Jazz basketball are you watching, bro? Because I mean,
he's going to say none.
Yeah,
he's going to say none.
And look, I'm not trying to hate on you, man, but if you're not watching the Jazz, you don't understand the power that they wield. I mean, we could do a whole deep dive into the Orlando game, but the fact is that they did what they always do to teams that are not good and not disciplined defensively. They shot the hell out of the ball, they got them into foul trouble, and they inflicted their will. And so, you wind up getting a 30, 40-point win or whatever. So,
By the way, Barry moved to Tampa over the weekend.
Really?
Yes.
Congratulations, bro.
Yes, enjoy
That's
the
awesome.
sun.
Did he move from New York?
No, Barry has always been an Ohio resident.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Who spent time in Phoenix.
Got it.
Which is how he found us.
Okay.
But he sold his house last year and went back to Ohio. And now, instead of Phoenix, he's in Orlando.
Well, hope you enjoy it, man.
Or Tampa, excuse me. I said Orlando.
Yeah, hope you enjoy it.
He's in Tampa. So, yeah, good luck to you, Barry, there. But you're not going to find good basketball in Florida. I mean, the Heat are decent. They're not elite. So,
yeah.
Good luck to you on that. But the only reason he went to Tampa is because, well, that's where his beloved are.
Uh-huh.
The Yankees are there. There's a bunch of New Yorkers there.
Yeah.
So I say, hey, Phoenix is Chicago West.
Yep.
Tampa is New York City South.
Yeah, pretty much.
So good luck there. I don't know. As I look at the weekend, in the bigger stories, I think the NBA now is just kind of winding down to the playoffs.
Yeah, you're in that time of year where you're trying to if you're the Jazz or the Nuggets or any of these teams that are pretty much healthy, your biggest thing right now is not, wearing yourself out. Your biggest thing is, again, managing some minutes, not forcing Donovan to play 40 every single night, making sure that he stays fresh for the postseason, that kind of stuff. And I think that the Jazz I want, honestly, man, I want them to go out and win the West. I really do. I want them to go to the NBA Finals. I would love to see that. But I just have major concerns, and I'm not just voicing them now that they had Aaron Gordon. I was telling you guys that the Nuggets have been a problem, but since before they acquired Aaron Gordon, and now that they have him, it's just like another level.
Well, and I think the other problem for the Lakers is, in the West, you're looking at no timetable for LeBron and AD's return.
Yeah.
They start on this huge trip. They're going to Tampa to take on the Raptors.
That's so strange still.
What's that?
That the Raptors have to play,
in Tampa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. By the time they return home, I guess a week from Thursday,
yeah,
they had better have an update on LeBron and AD, or they're just not going to come back.
Yeah. But I don't think there's anything wrong if they don't come back. Like, I think if that's the decision you wind up going with, LeBron will be back. AD is the one where I'm like, eh.
I mean, AD's been out 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Kevin Durant's going to be back this week, by the way. Speaking of guys who are going to be back.
Ooh, thank the Lord we're saved.
Mm-hmm.
Why throw that in there? Why do that?
We get it.
Why absolutely derail the show with that ridiculousness?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
That's my guy, man.
Gabe Ledley says, you're doing it right when Jazz fans are like, stop hating, and non-Jazz fans are like, stop jock riding. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Because that's all we get on this show.
That's a great point,
If you read the comments in our videos, all we get on this show is, that exact yin and yang. So I do appreciate that. Do we go NCAA tournament or do we go Shohei?
Well, so the only thing I wanted to say in the tournament was that I think that I think that it's partially COVID, and it's partially that there are a lot of players not playing college basketball right now. So you're starting to see the emergence of R.J. Hampton in the NBA, and his story. Obviously, LaMelo Ball has had a great year, and these kind of guys have taken what a lot of people will call a non-traditional route. I prefer to call it a gambling on yourself route, which is, hey, I know that I'm going to grow into my frame. I know that I can play basketball at a high level, and I just need to go and play basketball. Like, legit. I just need to go and play basketball, and that's it, and I'm going to be good. And I think that, right now, the tournament this year, I just haven't been interested. Like, everybody was all fired up over the weekend. This 1-point win for Stanford women's basketball, was an awesome game, and everything's cool. But, I'm not fired up about the championship game. I'm just like, dude, like,
Baylor
cool.
Gonzaga is a pretty good game.
It is a good game. It is a great matchup. Like, it is. Like, if you're into the tournament, you're stoked about this game. Like, this, for once, it's not, it's not like a nameplate like a Duke or UNC or whatever. Any of these games. Like, I haven't been excited about the tournament in a minute. Like, it's been a couple years since I was like, man, I really got to watch it. And I think that's just I think that's just attributed to the fact that there's not a lot of like great players right now. There's only a couple.
Well, last year you didn't have a tournament, obviously, but I think we've seen the decline in the quality of NCAA basketball for several years. And I agree with you. Losing guys like, Kobe, LeBron, that's been going on forever.
Mm-hmm.
But you're starting to see guys not care about NCAA basketball. And I do think this federal, investigation and the book Richardson, all of that whole FBI probe wiretap thing, I think it turned a lot of kids off. I think the vilification of Zion Williamson, in the aftermath of that whole thing, I think that turned a lot of kids off. I mean, there's no reason to have to go to college for 1 year. Kids don't want to go to school.
Yeah.
They want to go and make money. And I think that what LaMelo and what R.J. Hampton, to a lesser extent, but what those guys showed is if you go get a paycheck, you can still be picked at the top of the NCAA or at the top of the NBA draft without going through the NCAA tournament. And now, is what happened with Suggs and the buzzer beater, and does all of that raise your profile? Yeah, sure it does. Sure it does. But it also takes you a year out of your pocket.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kids don't want to deal with.
Well, and I think too, a lot of these kids, like you're talking about, Jalen Suggs or any of these, any of the top end prospects, right? Any of the guys who are, lottery picks in the NBA draft, any of those guys, their main concern, I can tell you right now, is yes, getting to the league, but the real concern is, hey, how can I take care of my family? How can I get my siblings out of this bad situation? How can I help my mom? Or how can I, that's what they're trying to do. That's like a lot of these guys, that first big check that they get for the league, they're taking care of their family. And so I think a lot of the thought process also is like, hey, let's go to Australia. Let's make, let me get $500,000 or something.
Jalen Green is the example. Jalen Green is a kid that skipped college and went to the G League and got a $500,000 contract.
Yeah, exactly.
You look at those situations. Isaiah Todd also getting paid. Like, these are guys that don't have to leave the country, and the G League provides them an alternative.
Yeah.
And I think over the weekend, hearing the news that Roy Williams quit at UNC because he didn't like the state of college basketball, and really the way the transfer portal's working, and college basketball is losing its appeal.
Yeah.
And I think the NCAA tournament, sure, I don't disagree with you. You can blame it on COVID. You can blame it on a bubble. You can blame it on the rain. Do whatever you want to do. The bottom line is, COVID or no COVID, the NCAA tournament is less significant now than it was 5 years ago. NCAA basketball is far less significant now than it was 5 years ago. And I think you're seeing guys like LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton, they're just the beginning.
Yeah.
They're not the end. They're just the beginning.
Yeah.
And I don't know where college basketball goes here. I don't know if you're the NCAA, you're not even willing to pay guys or give them their rights or help them make money to, help your game survive.
Yeah.
So why would they go to the NCAA when they can get $500,000 from the G League?
Yeah, they're not looking to go somewhere that's trying to hold them down. They're looking to go somewhere that's going to propel them forward. And so, if you're college basketball, the really smart play here is to totally do a paradigm shift and say, okay, hey, up until this point, we have not allowed you guys to make money on your likeness. We have not allowed you guys to do, all these different things. And that's a whole other conversation. But, we basically haven't allowed you guys to thrive and make money and do what you feel you need to do. And so that's why you're not playing college basketball. So if all those old farts running NCAA sports would say, hey, look, we need to do a shift here. If we want to continue to keep making money and we want to continue to be, the brand we were when, you got the Christian Laettners in college basketball, that era of college basketball, we want to get back to that. We got to start letting these guys make money on their likeness. We got to let them start doing way more.
Here's the problem, and this is the real issue at the top of the NCAA.
Yeah.
College basketball is not college football.
Mm-hmm.
These kids don't need college basketball.
Yeah.
If you want to go to the NFL, you need to play college football because of that age rule, the 3-year rule.
Well, and there's not an alternative.
Yeah,
there's nowhere else to go.
Well, yeah, but my point is you have to play college football.
Yeah.
And until that changes, college football is always going to be king. I look at the NCAA and I look at basketball, and I'm telling you, it's dying. We are watching the end of college basketball as we know it right now. Good morning. Shawnee says, I'm sorry, but nobody deserves to lose the way that UCLA lost. Well, deserves? Gonzaga deserved to win that game.
Dude, he made a shot.
Mitchell says, stop saying Zaga, it's Zaga. You know what? Like,
cool, dude.
Get a life, bro. Like, with all due respect, I'll say Zaga or Zaga any way I want. Right? Like,
come on,
I say it different ways. That has always driven me crazy. Well, it's Gonzaga. We're the Bulldogs.
Cool.
And then the person in the room next to you will say, well, it's Gonzaga. We're the Bulldogs. And it's like, okay, cool. Nice. Enjoy Spokane in the summer, bro. Like, I don't care. Sean says, I think they should let people go pro after high school. If they don't go pro, they should stay at least 3 years. That's one way to save it. And I think the NCAA had tried that. The problem is now, with the way the G League is paying players, the NCAA and the NBA don't have a good relationship.
Correct.
That relationship has been fractured because you paid Jalen Green $500,000 and he's playing in the G League. He's not playing, in the NCAA tournament.
Whereas you have NFL head coaches who have personal relationships with college head coaches to create pipelines. So Nick Saban has a bunch of relationships in the NFL and allows guys to come and scout and do their thing. And, and so it's a very, hey, you feed me, I feed you kind of a deal. So,
yeah, what I think is interesting is that I don't know what the quickest way to the NBA is.
I think it depends who you are as a player, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it is. I want to see what happens to Jalen Green.
Mm-hmm.
If Jalen Green ever becomes an NBA superstar, and actually it's not ever, within the next year or two, if he makes it and gets paid in the NBA, that's a big deal. Because so far he hasn't made it.
Right.
And if he goes to the G League and fails versus LaMelo going to Lithuania as a 5-year-old and then playing in Australia and now arguably was going to be the rookie of the year. I mean, look at the Hornets without him. Now, granted, the Hornets lost about 17 other players too. But
I don't even think it was arguable that he was going to be the rookie of the year. He was running away with it.
yeah, I mean, LaMelo was dominating, but why? He was more mature. He was more experienced. There's a lot of value in those things.
Yeah.
And I look at Luka, and Luka was a professional basketball player. I think at 12, he signed his first contract.
Which is insane.
You look at the trajectory of these guys making big money before they're 20. And it's not through the NCAA tournament. It's not. You look at Zion Williamson. I get it. He was a freak. He had the shoe blowout moment. I totally get it.
That's what everyone's going to remember about his Duke days.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he went and dominated. Zion got paid off of his YouTube highlights and got drafted number 1. And look at the learning curve.
Yep.
It's taken some time. And you know what it was? In the offseason last year, he learned to dribble a basketball. Yeah. He learned to get a handle. And so his development has been really of his own volition. It's not like he went to Coach K and they turned him into some great ball handler.
Yeah.
Because that's not what they did.
He was the same guy he had been through high school.
Yeah,
A dunker, a physical presence.
I just don't think that there is a fast track. I don't know, man. I could be wrong. I don't think there's a fast track to the NBA. There is a learning curve. There is a toolbox that you need, but what I am certain of is that the NCAA tournament will never be Christian Laettner with the half-court heave. Those days are over.
Yeah.
I just don't think the tournament will be that special. And we've had 2-3 great buzzer beaters, and obviously the Gonzaga win the other night, and the emergence of the Pac-12 throughout the tournament. There have been some talking points. You can't tell me that you took days off of work. You can't tell me you took the opening day of the NCAA tournament off work. I cannot tell you how many people I know did not do a bracket this year.
Yeah.
Including me, by the way.
And by the way, I also think it should be said that because nobody's in an office right now for work, I also think that is a big thing. I think one of the things that made the tournament so much fun every year, it was like, all right, cool. Tournament's starting this week. Let's go in and roast Jimmy at the water cooler and tell him how much of an idiot he is, right? Like the people who follow sports on a consistent basis would love to do that every single year. And I think that it just is not the bracket in March Madness and college basketball hasn't been about the actual basketball in a minute. It's been about the culture of it. It's been about talking about it and just doing the whole thing. And I think now that we don't have the office setting and we're not doing that as much, it has lost its, pull.
I don't know, man. It's not been of a lot of interest to me.
Yeah.
Opening day was far more intriguing to me than the NCAA tournament. But hey, that's just me. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I want to see where and how Jalen Green winds up in the NBA. Just reading about his numbers in the G League, he's doing fine. He is doing fine. I look at the way he's played. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see what he turns into. All right, make sure you hit subscribe on the old YouTube machine. If you're watching the show, please give us a thumbs up.